Hey, what's going on, guys? This is going to be my out-of-box review here for the HG Build Divers Gundam Zerachiel. So this is a pretty cool, really unique build, I gotta say. If you're looking for something that is definitely different from a lot of HG kits that you've ever built before, I would say definitely maybe check this one out and tune into the rest of the review, obviously, to see if it's something that you're going to be interested in. But I really enjoyed building this kit, also because I've always wanted to build the Harute. I really like the design, and I built that like bootleg third-party kit a while back, which I'm pretty sure is mostly the same kit with just added on extra parts and things like that. But it wasn't really, of course, Bandai quality, so I didn't really feel like I'd really quite built the kit, and so it did kind of feel like I was really building the kit for the first time. And then of course this is different from the original Harute. We've got some new parts added onto this to make it into the Build Divers version here of the Zerachiel, and the new color scheme, of course. It does also have now the added gimmick of also having a tank mode aside from just the flight mode, so we'll take a look at all that over the course of the review. As always, a huge thank you to USA Gundam Store for sponsoring the review. Do check the link to their site down below in the description and use that coupon code ZakuAurelius10 to save 10% off everything there on their site. Now, like with many of the Build Fighters and Build Divers kits, with it being based off of an old kit, we get a handful of leftover parts in the kit. So before we get into the accessories that are specifically for this kit, I just want to show you guys what some of the leftover parts that are going to be included in this that you might find a little bit useful, actually. Right, so say you don't like the new chest on this, you do have the parts of the original chest on here, much more pointier, but I definitely gotta say I like this new kind of more blocky look there of the new chest on it. Also, if you're not a fan of the new front skirts, you do have the original front skirts in here, but in this case I think I prefer the original. Around here on the backpack you have this new part that goes like on the top of the center piece, but if you did want to just use the original clear canopy part for that, you can use that instead of this piece on there. And if you're like me and you don't really care too much for the tank mode, you can just remove the tank treads. This is the original cover piece that goes on the top of that part. And then if you wanted to use this original missile pod thing that goes here in the center of the backpack, you can do that instead of this part here. You'd have to take out the connector piece out of this and put it into here, and you can plug that up into there instead if you want to use that. There's a handful of other leftover parts as well, but those are the most noteworthy ones I felt to show you guys. For his actual weapons here, we've got two of these GN sword rifles. So this has a nice cool clear blue part there for the blade of that, so that can be used just like this as an actual sword, and it does also open up for like a kind of a scissor kind of action, I guess. Then you can also fold out the handle here at the back and slide this part down here, and you can see that exposes the barrel of that for the actual rifle mode. This is much more cool, I think, just having it in a rifle mode like that. So I like that quite a bit. Again, you have two of these, and these can be attached onto the backpack here on this side. You got this little tab there. Plug that into the side, and that's going to add even more width and extremeness to that backpack there. Then we got his other main handheld weapon here, the GN huge cannons. And this one we also have two of. This one also, the handle folds out of that, so this can just be handheld as just a pretty simple kind of big giant mega handgun sort of looking thing, but the handle folds in there so that you're actually able to attach this onto the backpack as well. Down here next to the GN radome unit, you can attach these onto the side of here, and the other one on the other side like that, so that it's going to be looking sort of like this on the backpack. It looks like a mess, I've got to say, especially this part like folded down always looked kind of weird to me. Obviously it's meant to be there like for the flight mode or whatever, but just when it's folded backward like that, it looks kind of weird. And then the cannons are pointed up like that. That's just kind of how they're supposed to be as well when they're not in use. But it's cool that you can store those on the kit when they're not in use, so you can just have that on the backpack, so you can have your Gundam there if you don't want to have it holding anything in its hand. Everything's all attached onto the backpack, or I guess it's actually kind of like the back skirt sort of. But it's nice that everything's on there and not just free floating around. But just to make this next part a little bit easier, I'm going to separate the backpack here from the wool, so it just plugs onto this plug there on the back of the waist. And let me just first point out where the stickers are on this kit. So the first one there is going to be a sticker there for the head camera at the top, a sticker for the eyes, of course. And you see this blue bit kind of that wraps around the front of the chin part. That's actually just gray. There's a blue sticker around on that as well. Here on the front skirts, we have little stickers that are white with a little bit of black on them for here, 6 of those there on the front skirts. And then on the backpack, these camera stickers here on the top of these bits are there as well. And finally, this white one here on the GN radome unit there on the backpack. So for the articulation, the head will go up to there. Not all that much, but it's okay. It's just kind of your standard double ball joint polycap in there. I do have to say though, I really like that part, how it has like the bar that goes in front of the chin. It looks pretty cool. I don't really like it in blue though, so I'll probably just keep that in just gray, like the same color as the rest of the surrounding part of the head there. But then the head can point all the way down to there, or more than enough to get a really sharp angle. The shoulders are really weird. You'll notice they're like plugged in at a downward angle instead of just like straight in like usual. It's just basically due to the transformation, but you're not really going to get a whole lot of forward movement there out of that just because of this new part here on the chest is kind of like blocking the shoulder from moving very far forward. But I don't think it's really going to hinder too much of any articulation of the kit really. Now you can only really get the arm up to about 90 degrees like that, but that is because there's kind of like a locking mechanism there in the shoulder that locks it into place. But if you pop that out of place, then you can actually get the arm up all the way if you really wanted a super extreme pose with that. And for the shoulder armor, there's no seam on that blue part on the top, which is nice, but on the gray part you have this kind of like weird seam that doesn't look too bad there like on the top, but on the side it's kind of one of those weird like kind of seams there. It's not really straight, so I don't know if you really want to get rid of that or just leave it like that. It's just kind of up to you, but otherwise the arm is going to work kind of normally, just rotation there at the top. We have this clear blue part there for the GN condenser there at the elbow. The double joint there in the elbow will give you a full bend all the way up to there. This little flap on the back of the elbow will move up and down a little bit there. And then the wrist is just on a ball joint. And I should mention that these holding hands are the only hands included with the kit. In the stomach section, we do have a little bit of forward and back movement here, which normally when you have a kit with a huge backpack, you don't really want that because then it's going to naturally tend to fall backwards. But luckily, this huge backpack is actually plugged onto the back skirt, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't have any backpack at all. So that is quite a nice little bit of articulation there for an older kit like this. It's not too bad. No real movement really side to side, much to speak of. It's just kind of at a side angle like that a little bit. But then of course you can just rotate it there at the waist as well. The front skirts are also kind of really unique how they're plugged onto there. They're just plugged into this ball and socket joint like that. It's kind of weird. But those are able to move up and out of the way of the legs, it seems pretty well. And up underneath that crotch part, there's another clear blue part where you can only barely see a tiny little bit of that poking out of the side there. So it almost seems useless to even have a clear part there. But there is a clear part underneath this gray part here in the center of the crotch. Yeah, moving these front skirts around will make them fall out pretty quick. These little tiny little butt flap back skirts that it's got here do also move a little bit. They're just on ball joints. There's not really any room for them to move around anywhere, but they do move a little bit. The legs can be spread out to about here, which is a pretty good, nice wide angle, and they're very solid, so nothing's going to weigh those down. So we'll see how far we can bring the leg forward before we pop off the front skirt armor. It's going to be right about there to about 90 degrees when that armor is going to start to pop off there. But then a nice double joint there in the knee is going to give you a totally full 180 degree bend there at the knee, which is pretty nice. This little bit of armor here in the front of the ankle will move up and down a little bit. The toe will move forward and back as well. And so again, that's part of the transformation. So ultimately the ankle will kind of move forward up to there and back all the way back to there if you wanted to get a nice pointy toe stance. And some nice color separation up in here. You have the little white part up inside there, the blue, the light gray, the dark blue. And it all looks pretty good here with just the kit in general. For it being a pretty older kit, I think the color separation and just like the molding and details on the kit do all look pretty nice. And it's pretty minimal in the way of seams as well. I pointed that one out there on the shoulder armor, but otherwise you have one here on like the lower leg, which is probably most noticeable here on the back. It will go all the way down to there. It's on there on the front as well, but it's kind of hidden under this knee part of the armor, so it's not really as noticeable. As far as the articulation here on the backpack, again, just like this front part folds forward, and we got kind of like a double ball joint here for these connectors of these bits here on the side. I'm not really sure about what these big huge parts are called, but anyway, those are there. And they can move around just a little bit, but you're not really going to be able to do a whole lot with them. They're just going to be kind of as they are. That's really pretty much it for the most part. And obviously with all that weight on its back, the kit cannot stand up on its own, so I just have it leaning against the stand there. But just so you guys can get a sense of the height of the base kit, here it is compared to just the HG RX-78-2 Gundam. As you can see, it's pretty tall, as you might have imagined, especially with those giant big gun cannon things on its back. It's going to be a pretty tall and pretty big kit there for an HG kit. So all in all, the articulation, despite it being based on an older kit, is really not too bad. And as you saw, the seam lines also really not too bad on either. The stickers also pretty minimal. So really, I think this does stand out pretty well. Despite it being mostly an older kit, I think it does still stand up pretty well to a lot of modern day high grade kits. So it's definitely one of the better ones from the Build Divers line, that is for sure. Now I'll admit that while most of the articulation is there, it might be a little bit wonky trying to get into some more complicated poses just because of that gigantic back unit thing that it's got going on in the giant cannons. May get in the way, as you can see sort of with this particular pose, which I just sampled off the box art. But it still does manage to look pretty convincing, and I think it's going to be a pretty cool kit posed up in some action poses. And the different options between the swords and the cannon handgun bits, or even not using any of the weapons in hand at all, just having it posed up with that gigantic massive weapons platform on its back, is going to look pretty cool in pretty much any pose that you put it in. Alright, and then here it is transformed into the GN Sky form, and the transformation is pretty simple. Basically just kind of fold up the arms and you collapse the legs by just kind of taking off the knee armor, slide the leg up and put the knee armor back on, and it's pretty much it. It's one of those ones where if you look at it from the bottom, it's just a Gundam. Just kind of scrunched up. But as long as you look at it from the top, it doesn't look too bad, I think. It does kind of look kind of cool. I mean, you see the feet sticking out the back, but they don't really look too much like just a, like, it doesn't really, you can't really see the folded up Gundam really from the top. So it's not too bad of a flight form, I guess. It does look a bit weird with the tank treads on the top, so this is one of those cases where I think if this is the way that you wanted to display the kit, you may want to use one of those extra pieces and put those on there instead of the tank treads, but you know, that's up to you. And hey, I forgot to mention that you do also get this included stand with this, and it's nice that it does include a stand because it certainly needs one, and it doesn't really have a whole lot of articulation though, so you basically have this form with it sticking straight up, or you can use this arm with it at a little bit of an angle, so you have one of two options for that, but again, it's nice to have at least an included stand, so you have that. Now, let's see, how do we transform this guy into the GN Bull form, or the tank form? Now, listen up, man. Here, basically, you take off this part here on the top, you move this back to the farther back position that it is when it's in mobile suit form. Then you take these bits here on the side, you rotate that around, 1 and 2. We're just going to tilt these little GN howitzers as they were up, and there you go. That's the tank form like that. So yeah, it doesn't look like much, but if you're a fan of mobile suits that turn into tanks, which there are very few of them, so it is definitely unique. If this is the kind of thing that you're into, there's what it looks like, but it's probably the first and last time it's going to be in this form for me. That said, one thing that might make it a little bit more interesting is if you took off the giant cannon parts on the side and switched them around, put the left on the right and the right on the left, so that those big cannons would actually be pointing forward as well as the cannons that are on top. I think that might look also maybe a little bit more intimidating, so that might be something that you could try if you're interested in it. So all in all, I gotta say this kit is pretty dope, and among the Build Divers kits, this is definitely one of the better ones, and from being from Build Divers Break, I really like the Shining Break, and I quite like this kit as well, so definitely both of these are pretty recommended by me if you're looking for, like I said in the very beginning, something different, a high grade that is maybe going to just, yeah, be really unique among the high grade kits. That's always why I always was interested in the Harute, just because of how different it looked. So I'm really glad I was able to check out the kit. Essentially, I don't know if I'll ever really bother with getting the HG Harute now, because I think this is pretty much for the most part the same thing. And the leftover parts do give you some nice options if you don't like this exactly how it's meant to look just straight out of the box. So really cool kit, and I would definitely recommend you guys check it out if you're interested. So thank you all so much for watching. If you have any further questions or comments, of course, feel free to leave those down below, guys. And again, thank you to USA Gundam Store for sponsoring the review. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Hey! Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you want to check the kit out for yourself, you can head over to USA Gundam Store. Use that coupon code ZakuAurelius10. Save yourself 10%. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.